What happens when the world's biggest economy starts a trade war with, well, everyone? Under Trump's new wave of tariffs, the United States has been losing friends fast. And guess who's stepping in to take America's place? India. That's right. Nations around the world are turning away from Washington and looking toward New Delhi for trade, investment, and partnerships. In today's video, we're counting down 10 countries that have officially dumped the US for India after Trump's tariffs, and trust me, you won't believe which nation tops this list. So let's jump right in. Number 10. South Africa. South Africa has long been a balancing act between Western ties and its BRICS partners. But after the US slapped heavy tariffs on metals and agricultural exports, Pretoria had enough. India stepped in with lower import duties, a willingness to buy South African wine, citrus and coal, and a promise to expand investments in Johannesburg's tech sector. The result? South Africa redirected billions of dollars in trade flows from Washington to New Delhi. In fact, the two countries are now working on joint defense projects and renewable energy partnerships, areas where the US once dominated. South Africa's message was clear. If America punishes, India welcomes. Number 9. Mexico. This one might shock you. For decades, Mexico was deeply tied to the U.S. economy through NAFTA and later the USMCA. But when Trump escalated tariffs on Mexican steel, cars, and even food products, Mexico had no choice but to diversify. India stepped in by offering a direct corridor for oil and gas sales, importing avocados and other agricultural products, and inviting Mexican companies into its booming manufacturing sector. With India replacing China as the world's factory hub, Mexico sees opportunity in pairing its industrial expertise with India's massive consumer base. For the first time in modern history, Mexico is charting a course away from U.S. dependence and toward a true partnership with India. Number 8. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has always been one of Washington's crown jewels in foreign policy. Oil, security, and defense contracts worth billions kept the alliance unshakable. But under Trump's tariffs and his unpredictable foreign trade policies, cracks began to appear. When the U.S. pushed tariffs on Middle Eastern steel and aluminum, Riyadh saw it not just as an economic blow, but as a signal that America was no longer a reliable partner. To make matters worse, political disagreements over oil output in OPEC strained U.S.-Saudi relations further. India, on the other hand, offered stability. New Delhi is the third largest oil importer in the world, and it guarantees Riyadh something America can't anymore, a rapidly growing long-term market. Saudi Aramco has poured billions into Indian refineries and petrochemical plants, ensuring that its crude has a permanent buyer. But the partnership isn't just about oil. The two nations are cooperating on renewable energy, with Saudi investment flowing into India's solar and hydrogen projects. India also benefits from Saudi Arabia's ambitious Vision 2030 plan, which includes hiring skilled Indian labor and building joint ventures in smart cities and tech hubs. On the defense side, Saudi Arabia, traditionally dependent on U.S. weapons, has started exploring joint defense manufacturing with India. This is a game changer. If Riyadh begins sourcing weapons from India instead of exclusively from Washington, the U.S. loses not just money but influence. By dumping the U.S. and embracing India, Saudi Arabia is sending a clear message. The future of energy and defense cooperation lies in Asia, not America. Number 7. Brazil. Brazil was once considered a close partner of the United States, especially under right-leaning governments. But when Trump's tariffs targeted Brazilian steel, beef, and ethanol, relations soured quickly. Enter India. As part of BRICS, Brazil already had a framework to deepen cooperation with New Delhi. What changed was the urgency. Brazil needs markets for its agricultural goods, and India's 1.4 billion people are hungry for them. Now, Brazilian soybeans, meat, and ethanol are flowing to India in record amounts, and India, in return, is investing in Brazilian technology startups and renewable energy projects. The U.S. thought Brazil had nowhere else to go, but India proved otherwise. Number 6. Turkey. Turkey has always had a complicated relationship with the U.S., from disputes over NATO to sanctions. Trump's tariff hikes on Turkish steel and aluminum were the last straw. India seized the chance to strengthen ties, importing Turkish minerals, textiles, and even defense technology. In return, India has opened its pharmaceutical and IT sectors to Turkish firms. The Ankara-New Delhi axis is now growing stronger by the day, built on trade that bypasses U.S. pressure. For Turkey, India offers something the U.S. no longer provides: respect and mutual benefit. Number 5. Nigeria. Africa's largest economy has often struggled under U.S. trade policies, especially when Washington imposes tariffs on oil and agricultural exports. Trump's latest tariffs were the tipping point. India quickly moved in. Already a top buyer of Nigerian crude oil, India expanded its footprint into Lagos by investing in tech hubs, railways, and renewable energy. The result? Nigeria's trade with India has skyrocketed, surpassing its trade with the U.S. for the first time ever. For Nigeria, the message was clear. India treats them as a partner, not just a supplier. Number 4. Germany. Yes, even America's longtime ally Germany is drifting east. Trump's tariffs on European cars, machinery, and even luxury goods triggered massive backlash in Berlin. Germany found a willing alternative in India, where demand for high-quality automobiles and advanced engineering is exploding. German car makers are now building factories in India, while Indian IT firms are setting up offices in Munich and Berlin. What started as a tariff dispute has turned into a realignment. Germany is not abandoning the West entirely, but its trade priorities are shifting toward India at a historic pace. Number 3. Russia. Now this one might not surprise you. Russia's relationship with the U.S. has been strained for years, and Trump's tariffs only worsened things. India, however, has become Russia's lifeline, buying cheap oil, investing in defense cooperation, and creating payment systems that bypass the U.S. dollar. With sanctions pushing Russia out of Western markets, New Delhi has become Moscow's most important partner after China. What's new is the scale. Trade between India and Russia has more than doubled, with India becoming Russia's second biggest energy customer. For Moscow, Washington is irrelevant. For India, Russia is strategic, and together, they're reshaping the global balance. Number 2. China. This might be the most surprising entry of all. India and China are historic rivals, often clashing on borders, influence, and regional dominance. But Trump's tariffs created an unusual situation that forced both countries to rethink their strategies. China was hit the hardest by Trump's trade war, facing hundreds of billions in tariffs. India, too, found itself on the receiving end of U.S. tariff penalties, especially in textiles, pharmaceuticals, and IT services. Suddenly, both giants had a common problem: Washington. Instead of competing alone against U.S. pressure, Beijing and New Delhi started limited but strategic cooperation. For example, both nations are supporting alternative financial systems that bypass the U.S. dollar, such as digital currencies and local currency trade settlements. They are also coordinating more closely in global forums like the BRICS bloc and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO. On the supply chain side, India and China have quietly increased their cooperation in certain industries. While they remain competitors in electronics and manufacturing, they're learning to complement each other in critical minerals, pharmaceuticals, and infrastructure projects. For example, Chinese companies are supplying components to Indian factories that then re-export goods to markets Trump restricted. Even in green energy, a surprising partnership is emerging. China is the world's leader in solar panel production, while India has one of the fastest-growing renewable markets. Together, they're creating an ecosystem that excludes U.S. companies almost entirely. Now, this doesn't mean the rivalry is over. Tensions remain high, especially on the military front. But what Trump's tariffs did was force India and China to put aside some differences and realize that economically, they could both win by reducing their reliance on the U.S. In other words, the enemy of my enemy, at least in trade, can sometimes be a temporary friend. Number 1. The United Kingdom. And here's the shocker. America's oldest ally, the United Kingdom, has pivoted to India in a way nobody expected. Trump's tariffs on British steel, cars, and even Scotch whiskey infuriated London. Post-Brexit, the UK needed reliable partners, and India was ready. The two nations have signed a sweeping free trade agreement covering goods, services, and investment. British universities are opening campuses in India, while Indian tech giants are hiring tens of thousands in the UK. This isn't just trade, it's a full-blown partnership. In fact, analysts are calling it a 21st century special relationship, with India replacing America as London's go-to partner. For Washington, this is more than a tariff war loss. It's a diplomatic earthquake. So there you have it. 10 countries that dumped the U.S. for India after Trump's tariffs. From South Africa to the United Kingdom, nations are making the same calculation. The U.S. is no longer reliable. India, with its massive market, strategic location, and growing influence, is the safer bet. Trump thought tariffs would make America strong again. Instead, they've weakened America's global ties and elevated India to a position nobody saw coming. What do you think? Is this the beginning of India's rise as the world's new trade superpower? Or can the U.S. bounce back and repair these fractured relationships? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into global politics and economics.